Hello YouTube, this is Dakota from Bowtied Media, and today we've got another installment of This Week in EDM, where you go over songs that came out, well, this week in EDM. As always, there is a Spotify link down below for all the songs and easy access listening, so let's hop into it. Starting off in the bad category is NGHTMRE with Alarma. NGHTMRE back with another very intense dubstep cut that really isn't up my wheelhouse. I don't like the Discord notifications mid-song, and the drops just aren't really doing much of anything to me. Then we got Kompany and Careless Castle with Jawbreaker. This track just kind of feels empty and, quite frankly, meaningless. The drops are fairly generic for dubstep standards, and the song itself just really isn't doing anything else of note. Then we got Gryffin and the Band of Horses with the Funeral 2025 edit. The song is essentially a remix of the iconic The Funeral track, and just kind of sadly removes all of what made the original so special. The song definitely did not need a remix, and especially not to the tune of a boring deep house beat. In the Mac category, we've got Wachi featuring Aaron Richards with Hold On To Me. I don't really care for this track, as the song structure is incredibly boring and predictable, with nothing really to spice things up in the drop sections. Aaron Richards is fine on vocals, but I think Wachi's brighter, more commercial-leaning production is just meh. The Malaa alter ego with Murderer. A bit of a weird drum and bass cut with a squeaky synth melody that's kind of sounding like a dog toy, and with its relatively repetitive vocals, I wasn't really, too on board with this one either. Then we got Elderbrook and Ahmed spins with Waterfall, a very slow and calming track that's really meant to be listened to out in nature. Otherwise, it's a fairly underwhelming track in a vacuum with a steady deep house beat and simple piano chords. Then we got Adventure Club and Oliverse with Nothing to Lose. A track that felt pretty solid on paper with Adventure Club and Oliverse collabing, but kind of just didn't really do a whole ton with it in my eyes. The drops are fine, and they do sound a little dated, and as much as I love Oliverse as of late, I think Adventure Club's more commercial-leaning appeal held them all back a little bit too much on this one. But I think this one could have also easily landed in good, just as much. Then we got NGHTMRE with Buried a Friend. Big stylistic mix-up for NGHTMRE, going for a more vocal-forward track with a very atypical song structure, that being a long intro and kind of first verse into one main drop. It's definitely a slower track, but I think it's just too slow to get going, and when it does, the payoff is kind of just fine. Another track that also maybe could have landed in good. And yet another track I'm really teetering the line of good and meh is Bossfight's Flatline, actually. Starting off as yet another rigid bass house tune in the first half, Bossfight continues his streak of killer tracks of that genre, only to transform into a slightly odd Brittum back half that just doesn't entirely feel Bossfight-like to me. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but it's just not prime Bossfight. And officially moving into the good category, we've got Ookay with Walk Away. One of Ookay's best tracks in a hot minute, I must say. At first, you think it's going to be another kind of wonky electropop cut, but quickly morphs into a pretty intense drum and bass tune. Love the melody, and Ookay's vocals here keep things moving along quite well. We got Wasiu and Apashe with Lazarus Rise. Another collab between these two, but this time it's a little bit more focused on Wasiu's verses, which is a nice subtle mix-up. That being said, I think his vocals are decent, but not his best, and get a little repetitive at times. Then we got Feint with Flicker. Hard to go wrong with new liquid drum and bass tune from Feint. The production and melody is super smooth, and I love the long 5-minute runtime that really lets him pack a lot into this track. Then we got Garrix and Arijit Singh with Weightless. A stronger cut than Angels for Each Other, as this is a more kind of reserved and softer cut from the duo that sounds very much to me like a Z track production-wise. Arijit is on fire again, and if that really is Martin's vocals in the back end, it's a much improved performance over his first. Then we got MPH featuring Carla Monroe with Alone. A fairly standard UK garage cut from MPH here with a steady beat and good vocal feature from Carla. Nothing overly new or invigorating, but just a good, solid garage cut. Then we got Saint Punk with Hit That. A jumpy tech house cut with a sprinkle of bass house here and there, actually all throughout the track. But yeah, it's a relatively simple track, but one that gets you up and moving. Then we got Bob Moses with Time of Your Life. A relatively brighter new Bob Moses track with some real shine to it that balances out the kind of moodier bass line all throughout. Then we got Joe B with Copper Chops, another crunchy new Joe B track with intense melodies and crushing drum kit design, I guess. A little more on the rigid side of rhythm here, all things considered, and definitely isn't an easy listen, but one I did quite enjoy. Then we got Said the Sky and Taylor Acorn with Reminisce. The most Chainsmokers-like that Said the Sky has ever sounded. And I do think that it just goes to show how much quality really lies in the hands of the producer, not necessarily the style in which they're making. It's definitely a more commercial-leaning, classic, future-based track, but the production quality is just a step above anything the Chainsmokers could pull off themselves. Then we got Pendulum and Armin van Buuren with Sound of You, a newer version of Sound of You with Pendulum in full drum and bass form for what is essentially a remix of the original that pretty much just came out. It's a pretty solid cut, but nothing too out of this world by drum and bass or Pendulum standards. Rave Girl. Then we got Hades and Glade Palling with Pretty Rave Girl. What a wild track with so much variety despite not even hitting the 2-minute mark. You've got some hyperpop, digicore, happy hardcore, dubstep, bass house, and hard techno all in the span of just over 100 seconds, and it all kind of works. Definitely not your typical track, but definitely has a certain charm to it. Then we got Nanobi with Blush. A hands-up, high-energy trance cut that is fun and carefree and really quite engaging. The most modern-sounding Nanobi track I think I've heard yet, maybe ever in his discography. Then we got Sultan and Shepard and Rinzin with Before the Storm, a really long, big movement style of progressive house that is purely instrumental and still some of my favorite progressive house production this year. It's a truly magical track, and again, I love the longer length of these songs. Then we got Convexity and Caro with Dream Weaver, a track from two emerging artists that I've loved as of late. This track is just another banger. This very much sounds like a spiritual successor to Convexity's own Transmissions EP, which came out this past last year and landed on my top EPs of the year, but much more of the same kind of wonky, digital, nostalgic, synthwavy, future bass, future rhythm sound design that they both excel in. Then we got Effin and Tape B with Ups and Downs. I mean, were we really surprised that this song was going to be incredible? Effin and Tape B's sound design complement one each other so well, and the track itself may not be the flashiest, but the production and sound design is phenomenal. Such a smooth mixdown as well. And heading into the standout category, we've got a couple this week. We've got Gyrofield with Mother, a soft and constant drum and bass cut with lots of EDM influences that feels right up Gyrofield's alley. The atmosphere of this track is ethereal and feels like it belongs in a movie. One of my favorite Gyrofield tracks ever. Then we got No Mana and Nufori featuring Lava Hong with Forget About Us from the new Odyssey Sound System EP. This track honestly feels like a dream. The ethereal atmosphere, intense breakbeat production, serene vocals from Lava, absolutely pounding kicks. This track just feels like a modern masterpiece. It's peak No Mana, it's peak Nufori, it's just peak. A full review of this EP will be coming out sometime this week, hopefully. got Au5 and Psyuri with Heat. Au5 and Psyuri with another killer collaboration track with a super unique soundscape and melody. I've always complimented Au5 for his creativity, but these two took it to another level with this new track. There is so much going on, from the dubstep to deep house genre switch up, to the little minute production elements that keep this thing intriguing every step of the way, and is just, again, simply amazing. One of my favorite Au5 tracks in quite some time. But that's been This Week in EDM. Let me know what you guys think of any and all songs this week. I thought this week was pretty fantastic. I also think the Tape B and FN track could have maybe been in standout. But apart from that, I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below. But other than that, I'm Dakota from Bowtied Media, and I'll see you guys in another video.